Little Red Riding Hood thought to herself, "As long as I live, I will never leave and run off into the woods by myself." A quote from Brothers Grimm in this book, Little Red Death by A.K. Benedict. Hi guys, that quote was sent to me by my friend Julie over at Bookish Travels for adventure number 2 of our adventure reading, where I send Julie a quote from the book I'm reading. She sends a quote back to me from the book she's reading, which is a quote that I've just read, and we find an adventure. So, Little Red Riding Hood and going into the woods by yourself, or never getting to the woods by yourself. I immediately thought of the woods that I've walked in for the last decade of my life and my dogs, because just like Little Red Riding Hood, I never get to the woods by myself. I filmed the woods on this beautiful spring morning, walking with my 2 lurchers, Rupert and Luna. Walking lurchers is always an adventure, but it's not just the dogs accompanying me in the woods that prevent me from running off on my own, but also the myriad of stories that the wood holds itself. It's like walking with many people. And also for a while I've been finding and collecting lost bits of these stories to turn into mini altars, lost forgotten items dropped on the floor that I find to be enthralling clues. So here is my hodgepodge tin of lost things that I found on the path walking through the woods. Just proof that even when you feel you're alone, we never really walk through life or the woods by ourselves. We are a mishmash of each other's stories. I pick up each of these objects that I found on the path and wonder what the story was behind it, and it sparks ideas for story and divination and signs for myself, like I said, like a personal oracle. Also, it's absolutely fantastic for inspiring sketchbook work, artwork, and it's just fun. It turns walking into an adventure. These lost things not only hold the stories of past lives of the people who dropped them, but they also hold signs and symbols to tell us our new stories moving forward. To me, they have acted like an in real life living oracle of lost things, with a story just for me. If you are the finder, there is a message there. It all began the day I found the red marble, its top barely visible, sticking out of the hard ground on the path I was walking. Try as I might, I couldn't unearth it till I returned the next day with a spoon in my pocket, ready to help me dig it out. But how apt that it should have been a red marble when we're talking about Little Red Riding Hood. Now, a few months on, I think perhaps it was Little Red Riding Hood calling to me. I'm on the right track with my fairy tale reading, and there is something in that story of Little Red Riding Hood for me. The red marble on the floor under my feet gave me that little message. So I wasn't expecting it, but in a way I was. Next morning I went to the woods and I said out loud, if this is meant for me, then give me a spectacular find. If it's not meant for me, I'll leave it at the red marble. So a spectacular find or nothing. Little did I know, my mind was about to be blown, because as I turned the corner, there was an entire bush dripping with lost things that were left behind, and it completely blew my mind. Blowing from the branches was a piece of cloth which had come apart from a front piece of cloth, which is a printed up piece of felt of this young couple in an embrace. And strewn across the path were torn up photographs of the same couple. It is not difficult to see that we were in the realms of a breakup, and I absolutely loved some of the patterns on these torn up photographs. There is the faces of them kissing. So these were strewn on bushes, these were strewn across paths, and it was really something else. On another branch was a banner with their handprints on, and it made me realise that the woods are not really empty. The woods also have lots of people walking through them. There are a lot of life stories and breakups and heartbreaks and first dates and picnics going on in the woods that we are running along in juxtaposition with. So not only have I got the dogs racing around with me, but I'm walking in other people's footsteps in the woods, and they sometimes drop or leave or abandon stories for me to find. I also think that when we go into a woodland, we're also accompanied by varying energies. I think a wood is a really great classroom for experiencing energy and for beginning to feel different energies around you and to pick up on that. Something that I found that I could feel the energy in was the day after I found the red marble. Just around the corner from that, a battered iPhone case, and it just continued the story in my head about the breakup. Perhaps messages had been found on a phone, because when I picked up this phone case, it kind of had an angsty energy, and I have used the woods as a classroom for trying to feel different energies in the past. So in my woods, it might be different in your woods. There are different areas of the woods that do have different energies. There is a tree circle in the middle of the woods where the dogs will often run back to me and walk either side of me, even when they're off lead. And it does always feel like it has a really strange energy. At the other end of this same path as well, I'll often get things thrown out of trees and land on my head. This top part of this whole path does feel slightly strange. Also, if you remember, a while ago I uploaded a video saying, was my dog possessed by the Fae? Another tree circle. I think there is something about the shape of a circle in nature. When you find it, it is often a call to pay attention to energies. There is something really intense about the energy within a circle, whether it be protective energy or raising energy or Fae energy, which for me in this woods, when I feel Fae energy, it isn't necessarily good. In fact, I've never felt Fae energy that I felt that I didn't want to run from, if I'm totally honest. This way, let's go round. Also, if you're going into the woods, expect to find that feeling of rootedness. You're going to be surrounded by trees, some of them ancient, and trees take us down into the liminal space beneath our feet. They take us down to the roots of things. They speak to us of our own roots, of working with ancestors. I think that's why it's so important to keep returning to places over and over again if you're using them for your spiritual walk. I think another thing that accompanies us into the woods is the turning of the wheel, the seasons, the sabbats. I think if you return to the same place over and over again, it really does put you hand in hand walking with that turning of the seasons. Again, that turning circle, that incredible shape of the circle coming into play. I do have a couple of altars in the woods as well, which I go to on Sabbats and leave gifts like feathers or stones, just a thank you for this wonderful practice. And even sometimes you may find yourself accompanied in the woods by your gods and goddesses, by the very deities that you work with. Because one night I remember walking back to my car. It was a night where I'd walked the dogs really late. It was almost pitch black by the time I got back to my car. But as I was walking back to the car, loads of crows started flying around my head. I realised I was surrounded by the oak trees of the wood, and a white mist began to loop around the trees around me. And for me, it was just a meeting with the three deities I work with: Bridget, the milk of Bridget, the oak tree of the Dagda, and the crow of the Morrigan. And it was the most intense energy in the woods, and it nearly brought me to my knees. It was so incredible. It really was the Woodland as my church at that moment, so much so that I came home and I created a piece, actually on a vinyl record, because I wanted that idea of the circle. I was in a circle of oak trees, and I did a homage piece to the deities for meeting me in that moment in the woods. Also expect, when you go into the woods, other spirits, so plant spirits, tree spirits, spirit of place is very intense in a woods. And the fae, I've talked about the fae before. I've talked about the moment when my dog got possessed by the fae. I really don't like feeling the fae energy. I have a couple actually of fae tarot decks that for me sum up what the fae feels like for me. It is not soft and fluffy. It is not Tinkerbell. I think the tarot of the she sums up fae energy really well for me. I need to get this deck out, but like I say, sometimes I am a little bit wary of doing anything with the fae. So I do love this deck though. I've got a borderless one as well, with the borders cut off, to use as an oracle deck. So it's a great deck, but this definitely does feel more fae-like to me. So that is Tarot of the She by Emily Carding. But I also think that this Natalie Hertz Fairy Tarot as well, it's not quite as scary looking, I don't think, as Tarot of the She, although the Death card is pretty scary. But it does feel like the fae are in their own world, happily in their own world, and don't want messing with, thank you very much, which for me is the energy of the fae that I often pick up on. But I think this is a beautiful deck. Isn't that gorgeous? So again, my fae decks haven't been worked with that much, but it is lovely to have them anyway. But these two are the two that I really feel, yeah, that is fae energy to me, and that is very much fae energy that I feel in my woods, especially around the tree circle, especially when I get acorns thrown on my head, only in one part of the path, and they come at a hell of a speed, like they've been hurled at me. So yeah, the fae. This bank here going down, you can see there are just beginning to be the grasses of the bluebells coming out. I know all the secret corners of this woodland where the bluebells come. Also, as we go down here around this corner, you can see there are bluebells too, and I just think that's amazing. The bluebell is a plant that I've really worked with, probably more than a lot of plants, because of that lovely energy when the bluebells come out. The seed and sickle deck is one that I really associate with the bluebell. I really love this deck. It really does feel like a spring deck, the Cedar Sickle. These are the backs on it. It needs to come out to play again. We're in a gorgeous, gorgeous, sunny spring day today here in England. This is just screaming to come out. And here is the Bluebell card, which I worked with an awful lot last year and the year before, to be honest. It's a card that does keep coming out, so do expect, if you're paying attention and curious and want to go home and research, to really get connected to certain plants and plant spirits as well. Also, I suggest accompanying you into the woods, you take a tarot or oracle deck with you, because I found when you do that, then the nature around you becomes the fifth suit of your tarot reading. It begins to take on a voice and join in with the tarot reading. I do have a whole video on my channel about this, which I'll link in the description box. So, take a deck with you. Expect a fifth suit to come into play. And so you can see I'm accompanied by quite a few things on my walk, like Little Red Riding Hood. I'm not in the woods by myself, but I am also lost. With the trees that have fallen down recently, it pushed me off my path and I ended up here. I did not recognise where I was, and my phone does not do any justice to how steep this was. At the end of this climb, I had to climb up a bank to find this incredible part of the woods that I've never found in the last 18 years walking here. I couldn't believe it. It took another 10 minutes to get my bearings, and as I was slipping and sliding, climbing up that very steep bank, I wished that I had a rope, and don't you know what I put my hand on? Another lost thing, a piece of rope. Expect as well a love of your local locality to show up. Expect it to bring your magic closer into you. No longer will you be looking to buy those imported herbs or to follow something that isn't of your culture. I think if you're spending a lot of time in your own environment, no matter whether that be a traditional forest or woodland, or whether it be like an urban forest, I think you'll find your own magic there. And if it's your own magic in your own locality and you're living in it and with it and experiencing it over and over again and going back to places, boy oh boy, that is when real strong magic shows up. And also, finally, expect stories to show up. The stories that you're reading, you can re-experience as you walk through the woods. I know reading fairy tales, I am really feeling those when I walk through the woods. Taking a tarot deck, I expect stories to show up there. I've got a couple of sort of non-fiction-y books, one called Gossip from the Forest by Sarah Matland, The Tangled Roots of Our Forests and Fairy Tales to read, which kind of links in with that idea of the woodland holding stories. And then this is The Forest in Folklore and Mythology by Alexander Porteous. These are two books that are really high up on my to be read pile that I want to get through. There is magic and there is story held within the forest and the woodland, so we are never walking into a woodland by ourselves, just like Little Red Riding Hood. You might not have crazy lurchers with you, but you do have the magic and mystery of the universe, and your magic will walk with you. You having fun? Come on then. So thanks guys so much for watching. Thank you Julie over at Bookish Travels. I'll link Julie's video and all of Julie's links. Thank you for my adventure number 2. I loved it. Can't wait for the next adventure reading session next month. So thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.